All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? And in today's video, we're going to talk about a forum post that I saw today, and it kind of brought me back to a couple different things, and we're gonna attempt to tie it all together in this video and talk about it all entirely. I know I'm being kind of cryptic here, but I want to drive the point home. So let's dive into the video, and we'll get there as we get there. So back on July 6th. Gilliam the Rogue sent out the Update 35 combat preview. We've already read through this before. I've already posted a video talking about this. Not going to go through it too much. Long story short, their goal is to lower the delta of high and weaving, which is a manipulation of the game. They want to lower the skill gap a little bit by bringing the overall effectiveness of light attack weaving down and allow people to have other forms of build diversity and kind of like make it easier for content to be built around. Like if the damage isn't so crazy high, then you can make other content more similar and everything is a little bit easier to build around. Well, what's happened is as we know through the last couple weeks, their changes have actually made things worse, and they had to go back and revert them. Went through the changes on Monday, and although the changes are good for PvP, like all the changes that they posted, in my opinion, are very good. When you look at it from the PvE perspective, it just leaves you kind of scratching your head. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk about in this video. But coming in Update 35, we're reducing light and heavy attacks impact and damage production by adjusting their damage to deal a flat amount regardless of stats. So their goal in Update 35 was to reduce light and heavy attacks impact and damage production. And so their goal was to make dots last longer. If you have dots that last longer, it's easier to maintain a rotation. And honestly, from my perspective, looking at rotations now, they're a lot more simplified. They don't look as fun or as exciting. Maybe somebody that does more PvE parses can, illuminate the rest of us. But to me, it just doesn't look as much fun. And so I understand, like, if you want to try and open up accessibility for DPS parses, those some rotations like that will have to exist. And so they did a complete 180 of these very bad adjustments that they did, which is good. And as you guys know, during week 3 of the patch notes, they didn't really come out with much. And typically week 3 patch notes are like huge sweeping changes, and they're the biggest adjustments. And then typically weeks 4 and week 5, nothing happens. And so it really had me questioning what was going to happen when week 3 patch notes were so slim. And so it looked like they pushed them back a week. So they went through week 2 and week 3 to prepare for week 4. And so they came out with all these week 4 adjustments. And so what happened? Well, I went through this forum post by this X_K, and he goes, first I will preface this by saying, the title is this the gameplay you envisioned? I posted this on my community wall earlier today. And it says, first I will preface this by saying that this damage is only achievable while the target is off balance. It's about 160k heavy attack final ticks and 70k channeled ticks. Restoration Staff has the highest total heavy attack damage at 250k final hit and 106k mini hit times 2 for a total of 469k damage if all 3 hits crit. So he's channeling heavy attacks here, and he's showing the DPS of these heavy attacks. And so when you look at this, and some of you guys, you're console players, like what I used to be and still am. But if you've never seen combat metrics before, right here it shows active time. So this is the time of the parse. This is a 6-second parse. Shows your DPS, damage per second, over that time. And then down here it shows what it does. And so this isn't a full-on parse, but there are parses out there of people getting 90, 95, 100K. I think Neff has just posted a video where he got 95K today. Doing a heavy attack with a resto staff rotation. And so you look through this, and so he's showing what happens with off balance. The average 250k, the max 250k because he got the 1 crit. Lower end 78 to 109. And yeah, you get, like, on an off balance situation, your heavy attack resto staffs hit really hard. Spoiler for lightning, 119k. He got a 217k lightning. We go through and we look at bow. We got a bow heavy attack, 279k. And then you have dual wield doing 135k for each one. Then you have your two-hander doing 237k, and we're just going through all of them here. Inferno Staff doing 230k, and you have your Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield pushing out 220k DPS with a crit heavy attack, 112k over 3 seconds by doing off balance with a heavy attack. And then the final one, the one that made me laugh the most, unarmed heavy attacks, guys. The new monk build with off balance, you can get 189k crit heavy attack. That's how much they changed everything. So we went from wanting to reduce light and heavy attacks to we now have a new built-in monk class to where you can get 45k DPS by just getting an off-balance heavy attack in. And so, yeah, I've talked about this before, and this is another thing that I've been pointing to. It just feels like this combat team has no real direction. And so he's got a video here too. Let's watch this before I go any further. So yeah, this is just showing the channels. He's got the end cap with the weaving and then the full resto, and you're gonna see it hit there for 250k. And so obviously that's with everything, but yeah, that's what resto heavy attacks do. Resto heavy attack as of week 4 of the PTS is now it's now a viable DPS option. And so people commented on here, and yeah, it's just really interesting. Like 2 weeks of working on stuff, and they came up with buffing the fuck out of heavy attacks so much that you can literally get 45k DPS with unarmed heavy attacks. And it just makes you wonder, like, sorry, let me restate this. I posted earlier that it made me, I was pessimistic about the next couple weeks of the PTS because it made me wonder if they had enough time to push through changes. Like, is it better to just scrap everything for this patch, go through with the previous patch with just the adjustments, don't make these overhaul changes, because you're probably not going to have enough time to balance everything out and make something good. You might as well just, you say, you know what, we're going to shelf it for now, we're going to put it back for later. And I know they can't do that. You know, they're on a timetable, they're on a crunch, this stuff's going to go live. But in theory, when something's this bad, you should just be able to say, you know what, let's just scrap it. And so, yeah, it's what I've talked about before. I did an entire video 3 weeks ago talking about how it feels like this development team doesn't really have a direction and what they want to do. Well, here we go. Here's another example, but for a PvE side, where they reduced light and heavy attacks to where they're nothing. And now it's only impacting really PvE because Empower only gives you, is now a PvE only buff, which is a great change. But now you have things like Resto being a DPS. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is just going to be a rant from my point of view, but I am all for hybridization. I am all for different builds existing, different parses existing, stuff like that. But there's just some stuff that just doesn't make much sense to me, you know? I think one of the biggest things that gets lost oftentimes is it. And this is coming from a guy that like talks about math and stuff. Sometimes it just comes down to, is it fun to play, right? And all the rotations that I'm seeing this patch, they just don't look very fun. When you look at this, I mean, it's just 2 skills and then resto heavy attack, and it's so effective. Like, anybody can do that. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, I understand accessibility. I want more players to be able to enjoy more content and all these sorts of things, and I'm fully on board with that. But making the game worse is going to drive so many players away. And resto heavy attacks and unarmed heavy attacks are doing this much damage is just so out there for me, and I wanted to explain why. So this combat team back in 2019, they did this developer deep dive talking about class identity, And we're not going to go into it too much, but class identity has long been an important topic, especially in recent months on the ESO forums and social channels and on the dev team. This loaded term can mean different things to different people, and we all can agree it's an important element. When our team uses the term class identity, we're referring to what makes the experience of playing a class feel unique from other classes, regardless of what role the character may be fulfilling. We break down that experience into two primary components: power fantasy and play patterns. Power fantasy refers to the fictional justification of your character's power and how it's expressed through look and feel of abilities. Necromancers draw their strength from death magic as they manipulate souls, flesh, and bone. Templars can call upon the power of the light and the burning sun. Every class should have a clearly defined source of power, and class abilities should reinforce that fantasy throughout their descriptions, animations, visual effects, and audio. When you see a player using class abilities, you should have little doubt as to which class they're playing, and it should look awesome. We don't have to go any further. That makes a lot of sense to me, right? This came out in 2019. Hybridization has ruined a lot of this because Resto has become the tankiest backbar weapon you can run. And up until this upcoming PTS, it is the tankiest thing you can run. Everybody in any semblance of a group in PvP is running a Resto for that reason. And so the power feel of PvP is that if you want to be a tank, you don't run Sword and Board, you run Resto. And so some of the power feel has gone away. If you want to be the tankiest individual on the battlefield, you stack lots of heal over time effects right now. And so the power feel of being just a tanky boy that can take on a ton of incoming damage is running a restoration staff on your back bar. So I know restoration staff is not a class, but weapon skill lines, I kind of feel, should fall under power fantasy and play patterns. Having the best healing weapon also be one of the best, well, what it says here, that Resto is the best damage for heavy attacks, breaks this power fantasy to me. And this is why I wanted to do this video, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. Like I don't know. We're playing a fictional game where we're fighting monsters, and we're, sorcerers or Templars, or we're necromancers or whatever. And so I try to keep that in line as well. But at the same time, like some of these changes, it just doesn't make much sense to me. It really doesn't make much sense. This game has been out for so long, and you have all these core playstyles getting completely gutted with the hybridization changes that have yet to be balanced, by the way. They said that they were going to come back and do sweeps on balancing all these other underperforming skills. That hasn't happened yet. And so all those changes are now going to overlap with the adjustments for stuff that they just came out with this week, such as Resto Heavies being the best heavy attack thing in PvE. It's so weird to me. It's so weird that we keep getting to spots like this. I think we should be able to acknowledge, hey, Resto's the best healing weapon. Maybe not let it have damage. I don't know. It's so weird. People are gonna flock to what's the easiest and what's the easiest to accomplish. And yeah, maybe they're not gonna be able to do hard mode trials and everything, and another rotation will be needed. But just the fact that this is so much damage and so viable it's just crazy to me. And so I wanted to highlight this, and I wanted to highlight what this is doing compared to what their goals were from their first post of these patch notes to what they talked about 3 years ago. September 26, 2019, almost 3 years ago. This is what they wanted to talk about for class identity. Do your classes feel like they have a very strong identity? Not all of them. I mean, Dragonite obviously still really good, but it's just this is one of their platforms and is power fantasy and play patterns, and it just you just have stuff like this breaking every patch. And so it just doesn't, like I said, I keep saying this, it just doesn't make much sense to me. Doesn't make much sense to me at all. But yeah, overall good PvP changes, and you guys are gonna say hey, Else, why are you talking about PvE changes? You're a PvP channel. Well, we're all in this game together, and I want PvEers to enjoy the game too. I want them to get a fun enjoyment out of the game and everything that it provides. It just doesn't look like next patch is going to be as much fun. It just doesn't look like it's as much fun. And we have for PvE, it looks great for PvP. Like the changes look a lot better. The next patch right now on paper looks better than the current patch. So it's definitely an improvement. Can definitely be better. Hopefully more changes come in, and we'll save that for another video. But yeah, like rotations look slow. Dots look uninspiring. Like they're not really providing a ton of damage. Like they're not really providing much of an impact. And now you have resto and freaking one punch builds out there. And so yeah, that's where we're at. Obviously this is the PTS. I'm not trying to overreact or anything. It's just, like I've said before, you would just hope that there would be more polish to a patch than this, than to have, 250k resto heavy attacks, like channel, like 250k for the final hit. Sorry, that's only one hit is 250k. I keep saying that wrong. I'm sorry, but yeah, you would just think that there would be a little bit more polish, so stuff like this wouldn't skip through. And maybe this was intentional. Maybe this was their goal. They were just like, you know what, accessibility, this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna push through crazy amounts of resto heavy attacks. We're gonna put in, we're gonna have our empower buff be for PvE only, and this way you can just parse your way this way to good DPS. We're gonna raise the floor so that all you have to do is hold right trigger or left click or whatever you want to call it. Like that's all you got to do is just have empower, left click, right trigger, away you go. Maybe that's what they wanted to do. I don't know. I feel like there's so many different better ways to go about doing this, and a lot of it involves talking to the community and talking to players like Nephis and Skinny Cheeks and XK that clearly show like how this got pointed out within 2 days of the patch going live. Like, I don't know. I the more and more I see this patch, the more and more I feel like they should be reviving. They should really find another group of players that they can rely on and get feedback off of, so that they can polish some stuff up before it goes to the PTS. That's just my opinion. A couple people parsing on a dev team doesn't cut it. Like you have the resource of all these players with all this knowledge of playing this game. They'd be able to help and point stuff out for you, so stuff like this doesn't slip through. Like these are the types of things, in my opinion, that just shouldn't slip through. It just shouldn't. Like this shouldn't be. It should be more refined than this. You had 2 weeks. You had 2 weeks to parse, and you came up with 250k ticks on resto heavy attacks. So yeah, not much else to say. That's gonna be the end of this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide in the section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.